Good morning, good evening, everyone. Welcome to GAI Insights morning AI news review. This is Luda Kopikina, and we will rate the news essential, important, and optional, helping you find the most important developments that are happening today. I have John, Paul, Adam, and Ankash today, our regular crew. And you can follow along at gaiinsights.com/articles. Please like us on all the platforms that you're using and share your views as we go along. Let's start with the first article, Ankash, please.
Sure, Luda. So the first one that we have for today talks about introducing Keto.
Yes, this is a new software development platform, or rather AI agent, more specifically development platform from AWS. What did you think about this, Adam?
Yeah, so it's the category they're describing is what they call the agentic IDEs. So these are these AI agents that can help you with your software development. A new entry into the space, as you would expect, is a little more sophisticated, has a few more features than the ones that have maybe come before it, but it's a really crowded space. I mean, Windsurf, Lovable, Replit, Cursor, there's so many out there already vying for that mind share. This one has a couple of nice additional features in terms of ensuring that specifications are being met and there's some consistency, as well as creating hooks or test harnesses to validate along the way. So a little more of the sophistication in terms of the software development lifecycle, but mostly product announcement. If I checked the pricing, and even the free one says coming soon. So I think it's a little early to be getting excited about this, and I called it optional.
I see. It actually, for software developers, this is a real good advancement. Other platforms, I don't think, have it. And that's on the intersection of, it's essentially transparent software development. It's insight into requirements, keeping the documentation, and all the agentic behavior essentially can be modified at later on, because you could do it automatically almost. So an interesting step forward. What did you think about this, John?
Yeah, I was going to give it more important. Yes, it's a Me Too category. Seems like a pretty impressive tool. I'm not a software developer, but it's amazing. And the other thing is, it's from Amazon. It's backed by Amazon, and so I think that when you look across, I think Amazon's doing a heck of a job with Bedrock and their model availability and now this integrated software development. But I think so. I was going to give it an important critical category. I think the other thing that's interesting is that we've only begun to see. I think software is self-referential in the sense of it needs to do certain processes and indirect stuff, administrative stuff like documentation and integration and so forth. I think that general management paradigm of doing the thing itself and then the administration of how it fits into the bigger business system. I think Mayo Clinic is doing that for new algorithm development. I think with AI, this notion of automating the bureaucracy and the integration necessary for any given task, I think it's going to be one of the critical things that drives productivity. So, because if for anybody's read, Fred Brooks's Mythical Man Month, creating the software is 1x the work. Integrating it with other software is 3x more, and integrating it, getting it from inside to a product ready is 3x. So that goes to 9x. So the notion, this I think could take that 9x scale up factor down to who knows what, 3x, 2x. Could be fantastic.
Yeah. Ankash, if you can scroll to the first graphic that appears in the article, what they show. Yeah, so essentially they say, look at when you do vibe coding, you're using a Lovable and the like. So it looks like a miracle. You just use prompts and then an application appears. But you really don't have the clarity of the specs. So this is focused on the intersection of the clarity of the specs, maintaining them, actually drilling into them, and the flow of the vibe codings combine. So I think it's a really big improvement.
So,
Okay,
Gerard, I know we didn't cover it, but Replit, just in the last week, I think, now in every single one of their projects, there's a replit.md file that's all of the specifications. And even it'll self-catalog which step it's at in the development cycle and what it's going to do next. And literally, they said for any projects that are previous to this, next time you launch the project, it will look through the entire code base and write one and define it. So it's a cool concept, but it's also at the software layer, and everyone's going to be doing it very quickly. Maybe it's important to highlight, though, as well, the importance of that.
Yeah. Okay, Paul, what did you think?
As a product announcement, it's definitely optional in my view, but incredibly hot space. I think to me what's more interesting is this whole notion, are we actually seeing a verticalization in this age of AI that we didn't see in the pre-AI world? So if we get software code editing tools, i.e. they're becoming closer and closer to whatever specific AI intelligence you're using and integrated, which is, and then these IDEs really become a spell check in a whole environment that you're working on. So we're seeing this integration at the CUDA level from software and hardware at the chip. And I'm actually wondering if we're starting to really see it now at the intelligence coding level as we move towards 24/7 agent coding on top of human augmentation. So, but this article is optional, incredibly crowded space, and developers are going to battle out and they're going to decide what tools they want to use. So I'm not sure what the AI leader would even do with this.
Okay. My gut says important, Paul.
Yeah, when you say don't know what to do with it, they learn about the new product. I don't know what you mean. What would they do?
And I have the chalk. So
the dev team already knows about this. They're not going to take advice from AI leader. Great, thank you for letting me
know. That happened. We shouldn't tell the AI leader if you don't think they'll be credible with the developers.
Paul, but I think Vivek is commenting on this, and my gut is saying this. Like, if you use Lovable or Replit is better at this because it goes into the production much faster. On Lovable, it's really the prototyping tool, like some others, right? So to get it to production, you can't quite. You need to prop it with stuff, and that's where importance is for the leaders to understand what is involved in all these vibe coding tools to get them to production. And this is a AWS. Okay, Ankash, what do you think?
Important for me, Luda. So I know there are a lot of coding tools out there, but as Adam mentioned, so Replit has introduced that new feature, and this one already has that. So I think important, but yet we will see how the adoption progresses for this one.
Okay.
But good to know.
Okay, so since I have the chalk, I'm going to put it as important. Let's proceed, Ankash.
Okay, the next one comes from CSO Magazine and talks about how new Grok 4 has been breached within 48 hours using whispered jailbreaks. How new...
Oops, I think we lost Ankash. John, so an article describing the continuous woes of this platform. What do you think?
Yeah, I was going to give this an important. It's really interesting. They were able. I mean, they went after Grok 4, but this notion of taking these the crescendo, and I'm forgetting the echo chamber crescendo, and using it as basically, it struck me as basically trying to persuade the model you're trying to lower the moral clarity of the model, and is one way to think about it. I mean, you have a set of interactions that progressively make more and more aggressive asks. How do I build a Molotov cocktail? How many people can I kill for $1? That kind of stuff. But you don't start there. And the guardrails are very sensitive to, they're not exactly binary, right? But they're very sensitive to a priori for the fact, words or phrases or questions and so forth. And this is more subtle. So it's more like seduction or influence or propaganda than it is like direct questioning in terms of how it goes to the model. I think this is a huge issue. This is an evolving part of the field, which is more of a dialogue persuasion, change the model's mind kind of thing as a threat vector. So I thought it was an interesting threat vector. You could make the case for optional. It's just another threat vector. But I think, talking about Grok, it's kind of clever, interesting domain. I hadn't seen it before. It was maybe old news to folks who live inside, the security world. But I was going to give it important.
Okay, important coming from John. What did you think about this, Adam?
I was more on the optional as John described. So I believe it's Crescendo is the one that's been around longer, and it's been around, I mean, at least in terms of jailbreaks for these types of things, a long 15 months or something, early last year, which in this space is a long time.
Ancient times. Yeah.
Right, exactly. As opposed to Echo Chamber, which is just in the last month or so here. And so it's interesting stuff. I could see where it would be important. The reality is on the day one that every single one of these models comes out, it's jailbroken by every one of the leaders. So in some ways, that's also why I felt it was kind of optional, is because it's hyping up the activity around Grok 4 to sort of push this lever on, look, jailbreaking's like this hyped up thing, when really it's just saying a month ago someone discovered another way to make these models vulnerable, which hopefully our leaders already knew.
Okay, so Adam is on more on optional. What did you think, Paul?
Yeah, I'm with Adam. I do think, though, the whole security thing is an important thing. I mean, we're so in awe of the breathless pace of innovation, but it also means there's downside. And this whole notion that this is a persuading intelligence is so different than deterministic tools we've had for the last 30 years. It's important to have in the back of your mind, but this article is optional.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Let's mark it optional and let's proceed to the next one.
Can you guys hear me?
Oh, now we can.
Okay, great. Okay, the next one that we have for today talks about whether CUDA's moat is cracking, and also the rise of ROCM and the role of Meta and OpenAI.
Yeah. So this article discusses how important CUDA is. And essentially, it's a single source. This is the software layer on top of NVIDIA chips, when you can tighten the AI, your training model, and to the chip's performance and optimize it. So this article talks about how OpenAI and Meta are supporting the AMD chips that came around and the layer ROCm on top of it. So now all the CUDA code is easily portable into that software. And so the movement allows the competitive layer. CUDA, though, is very pervasive essentially across the board. So people use it quite a bit. So it's not going away. But the AMD software now provides an alternative. So I rated this article as optional. This is no really new news per se. We've heard about this movement. So that's what do you think about this, Adam?
Yeah, I was probably optional as well. I think it's important for AI leaders to think about protecting themselves against the NVIDIA demand. And this is an important development in that space where it's really starting to become more competitive. There's some big things that are here that AMD is now offering that we're missing and lacking. So it's kind of a big deal, but in the grander scheme of things, I'm probably with you still overall that it's optional.
Paul, what were your thoughts?
It's optional. I mean, there's no cracks in CUDA. They just hit 4 trillion. They're kicking everyone's butt and gaining share. So yes, these are all.
The crack is in anyone who wants to use CUDA and can't afford to because of the demand. That's the crack in it.
And it's an alternative. If OpenAI and Meta actually start using AMD, that will show a little bit of a crack, not the full crack, but
what am I going to do with this as an AI leader?
Yeah, no, I agree with you. John, what do you think? John, you're on mute.
Optional.
Optional. Okay, optional it is. Let's proceed.
Yeah, and I encourage our audience to EIO as well on the comments if you want to.
Yeah, Valda raises a good point. I don't know if you guys put this up before about on the previous article, AI leaders need to really understand, what's going on with security concerns. C-suite's worried about that. This, as you say, Adam, even though everybody goes out and breaks the stuff as soon as it comes out, anyway, you have to be conversant.
Okay, the next one comes from Mark Zuckerberg, and he is building a 5 gigawatt AI data center.
Yes, Adam, this is not really new news, but what did you think about this one?
We'll wait and see, I guess. Sometime next year, apparently, the 1 gigawatt will be online, and they have plans for 5, and that's in several years, and a lot's going to happen between now and then. And it's great that he's announcing big things, but it's mostly noise, I think.
Yeah, I think the more interesting thing is what they're, and maybe we'll cover it tomorrow, what they're doing, in terms of thinking about doing a closed model instead of Llama. It looks like what's his name, Jan LeCun's getting demoted, as a big open person, and the new guy from Scale AI wants to go closed. President Trump's going to announce a thing in Pennsylvania later today where they're putting $70 billion into new energy and data centers in the Pittsburgh area. They're going to bring back some coal-fired power plants. They're going to build some nukes. Anyway.
Yep. We'll cover it in more detail tomorrow. But okay, so optional, Paul, optional?
Optional, I think just another indication that the scarcity right now is the very top AI talent and power. And the big guys are overspending like crazy. I mean, 5 gigawatts is just massive. I think 1.5 gigawatts is enough to power Dallas Fort Worth in a day.
Yeah, to put it in perspective, XAI's 200,000 GPU super cluster is 250 megawatts. So that's a quarter the size of the small one. That's a fifth of the size of the big one he's announcing.
Yeah,
he's running for the launch running right now.
It just shows how much belief everyone has in the scaling things here. So if we get more power, more centralization here, we're going to have a better model here. So size and speed and scale is just breathtaking.
Yeah, the challenge is that power that's great. It's great that they're having new power coming online. Power for this thing is the sound of one hand clapping. The other hand is international students, right? And 7 of the 8 people who wrote the Transformer paper weren't born in the United States. Come on. We want the brain drain plus the power together if we want to be strong in AI.
But how does that affect the data center? Or are you just making in general that
making a point about all these people are announcing data centers? It's the talent that you need the data centers, but it's the talent that drives the innovations.
It's a combination. You need both. You need both.
Oh.
Yep. Okay. Optional it is. Let's proceed.
Okay, the next one comes from Google, and Google has made their Gemini embedding latest model now generally available in the Gemini API.
Yes, Ankash, could you please tell us how you rate this article or this news?
Sure, Luda. So I was between important and optional for this one. So this embedding model, this has been at the top spot in the embedding model benchmarks for 3 or 4 months now, and it covers a lot of languages. It has a good context length as well, and it comes at a cheaper price as well, and a good free tier. So I think it's a good option vis-a-vis OpenAI's embedding model and then Cohere's as well. So if someone is looking for options, good for, I would say, anyone who is already working with Vertex AI. But yeah, not a very relevant news which might impact AI leaders.
Okay. Optional to important. What did you think, Adam?
I was optional to important as well. I noted who has been left off this benchmark list of competitors is Mistral, interestingly enough, who is at the top of a lot of these benchmarks, very competitive with the Gemini embedding and much cheaper. And what I'm finding overall is that Mistral, as I look at it as an option at the enterprise level, seems to be really within 5-10% of the top in terms of performance, but at a half to a quarter of the cost, which they continue to go after. And so this Gemini model, it tops all the leaderboards, and then you actually are paying a premium for it. So it's something to consider. It as a good free tier, but at an enterprise level, you're going to be paying that 15 cents per million tokens for the embeddings, and it's going to add up. So it's optional for me as well, but I just wanted to illustrate.
Very good point, Adam. Very good observation. Okay, going optional, John, Paul.
I mean, it's one of 5,000 AI companies that has a product going GA this month. It's not notable at all.
Yeah, I mean, if it weren't from Google, I wouldn't even pay attention to it. But yeah, I mean, so I was on the fence.
Okay, good.
Let's not underestimate or undermine how important the embedding models are. As we take all this unstructured data and we extract it, and then we have to make meaning out of that new structured data that we've just gotten. Everyone's going to have to put everything they have through these models.
Yeah.
So it's an important part of the.
Yeah, and it's kudos to Google to opening them up, opening this model broadly so that people can now use it through APIs and the like. But still, I think it's more like, to Paul's point, it's more like noise, though. So optional it is. Let's proceed.
Okay, the last one that we have comes from Unilever and talks about how Unilever used AI to make soap go viral.
That's a very interesting title. Very good. And talks about the use of influencers in marketing. And that's an interesting way of promoting your products. John, what did you think about this?
Yeah, I was on the fence between important and essential on this one because, look, I think everybody who's in marketing understands that influencers are critical in the middle of all this, and have been for a couple of decades. And everything evidence from people saying they want to be a social media influencer as a career, young people all the way up through spending your marketing dollars. At the same time, Unilever, I forget if they're the largest or one of the largest, consumer packaged goods companies in the world. They're right up there with Procter and Gamble. They operate all over the world. This is now a central part of how they're trying to drive primary demand. So, I don't know. It's a real story. It's a serious company. Their market, what they do in consumer marketing is, among the best in the world. And so the notion of how they think about influencers and AI in the context of that, I think, is something that anybody who's got certainly business to consumer brands should think about. So I was on the fence, I to E.
Yeah, I was actually E because at the scale of manipulating all those assets and providing them in a personalized way to all these influencers and contributors was quite impressive. And it's something that people in other industries would want to know, retail especially. So, what did you think about this, Adam?
I was probably leaning towards important over essential because they don't. If you look at it as a really powerful use case or case study, it doesn't go into much detail other than in the two uses they're talking about. They say that they used NVIDIA's Omniverse and they use generative AI to remix social media content into different sizes, right? So there are a couple of good use cases, but it doesn't talk much about how they actually use the technology to do it. I was probably important as a couple of good examples of ways that people may not be thinking about some of the really profound impact of AI, but not an essential read in my book.
Okay. Paul, what's your thinking?
Yeah, I'm with Adam. It's more on the optional side, not nearly enough detail here. I did want to put one footnote here. I didn't realize Kirkland brand, which is a private brand of Costco, is bigger than P&G and Unilever. So Kirkland, I think, is 86 billion in revenue. P&G is 80 billion. These guys are like 70 billion. So footnote in terms of size. But this article is optional.
Wow, I did not know that. Yeah,
that's funny, John.
That's stunning. Yeah, I wear Kirkland shirts. There you go. One of the things I think that's here, it's certainly a lesson for us as a company and other companies, and I'm on the board of a promotional products company. This notion of your role of getting your product out there is you're essentially franchising assets to influencers. I mean, I think of it, like when Ray Kroc did, McDonald's, he created a business system that made it easy for investors and operators and geographies to participate. It certainly seems to me that, influencer in a box assets and I imagine audience going forward, as well as, methods and dashboards, that it's very interesting that the brand is essentially has to package up, the way that they want their brand talked about and make it easy for the intermediaries who are now the influencers to get out to the end customer. Very interesting.
But John, but you think I totally agree, John, everything you said. But for me, isn't the influencer just like another TV show? I mean, it's just a huge bifurcation of audience aggregation here. And
Yes, yeah.
instead of being on, instead of Days of Our Lives, I'm advertising over on.
I was going to say it's like guerrilla product placement when in the Hollywood movie they're drinking the Pepsi, right?
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. The difference here, the very different here. There's a guy, but there it's the structure of network and how the message propagates through the network. Okay, and in traditional broadcast networks, it goes linearly with the size of the audience. And when we're at Diamond, we talked about these three structurally different networks. We called the first one a Sarnoff network because it was after David Sarnoff, the guy who invented the business model for radio in the United States. Because at the beginning of radio, they weren't sure it was going to be advertising driven or subscription driven or what, right? So the idea of a dumb device, the radio and broadcast tower, the value of that network is directly proportional to the number of people in the network. 2 million people is worth half as much as one, twice as much as one, half as much as four. Switch networks, which Bob Metcalf talked about, it goes up by n squared. Like that's why you don't have small phone networks, because every time you add an individual to the network, it goes up by the total number of possible connections in the network, but hence n squared. Self-organized networks, as David Reed pointed out in 1998, go up by 2 to the n, because I can create a broadcast network, I can create a switch network, but I also can create subgroups. Assets are different from product placement on television, because product placement on television was a Sarnoff network, a one to many. This is, I give you an asset which you then can either do in a bilateral fashion in a Metcalf network, or you can do it in a Reed network, and you create influences and subgroups, and that's very much more stable and powerful. And that network structure is dominant for the other structures, just like TCP/IP is dominant over the previous networking protocols. Anyway, so I just want, it's fundamentally different, and now the brands are going from broadcast thinking, I think, to self-organized network thinking.
Yeah, and they are personalizing it to that particular distributor, so you can choose what assets you could use for your base, right? And that even becomes more powerful. So okay, let's rate it important. And as Ankash prepares the scorecard, any announcements?
Well, I would just really encourage people to go back and look at the YouTube thing we had last night. Chris Brock did a fantastic job going through Lovable. Had a combination of the things he was doing, as well as some of the new mathematics he's exploring. He's a person who's very interested in number theory and is doing some very interesting work about 5-dimensional core mathematics that may be very powerful. Anyway, I thought it was a great session. Yeah,
it's on YouTube now. It's Lovable. I think the other really interesting thing that I took away from that session, John, was his notion that if you're not a coder now and just start using the basic tools today, you're going to have even more superpowers a year or 2 years from now as they keep getting better and better here. So it's the whole road to get on citizen coding is wide, and everyone should be encouraged to try it and not intimidated.
Absolutely.
And at the same time, a prototype is not a production system here, which was really driving me nuts last night. Lou, look how pretty it is. It's not deployed. It doesn't have authentication.
And moreover, I hear from a lot of people who try to deploy those prototypes in real life. They need to go rewire the whole thing, essentially.
But Lou, I've tried 4 times with Replit different things here. I mean, it's 80% there, and the last 20% is non-trivial. I mean, it's just it's like the meeting summary early on. Oh my God, it's summarizing a meeting. He said, no, I was in a meeting. Those aren't the top 2 takeaways. So there's still a little.
The quality of the output is important, and the rest of it. Okay, Ankash, do we have a scorecard?
Yes, Luda, coming right up.
And while we're waiting on that here, I just want to continue lots of momentum on our conference coming up in the fall here. So if you're interested in attending, let us know. We can certainly offer listeners in this show a discount, but we just added another 3 more CIOs from Mayfield Fund, and it's just going to be a fabulous, fabulous gathering September 29th and 30th in Boston.
Yeah, and on the 30th morning, we are going to have a Women in AI breakfast, and it will be on topics that are hot topics today in AI. So please join us. Okay, so today we have 2 importance, and the rest is optional. All the importance are very well debated and chalk orchestrated. So maybe not necessarily all agreements, but let us know tomorrow what you think. Okay, thank you all. Thank you for debating. Really appreciate it. We'll see you tomorrow.
Bye, everybody.
Adam, can I grab you for 1 minute?